This was saved from 4chan's X board on Friday, September 28th, 2012, 1:31 a.m. EST. Edited slightly from the original thread to improve grammar and flow. Here's my story. B, 16, be black and have family down in Alabama. They farm and own a huge amount of land down in Huntsville. Uncle owns a big house and a bunch of trailers that they put out in the woods for hunting and camping. Down south, cousin suggests that we go out there to camp. They know I'm only a city kid from Chicago, so they tease the fuck out of me. We collect food, kill a pig, kill some chickens, and bring necessities to go camping for a couple of days. We get to the camp and it's obvious that something's weird. The air has this weird electric smell to it, like right before a storm. Like ozone. We think nothing of it and unpack and go down to a little creek and swim for a couple hours. All of a sudden there's an older white guy and a teenager out there in the bushes. He has a shotgun in the crook of his arm and says hello, and asks us what we're doing out this far into the woods. Tell him about my uncle, who he knows, and we say we're out camping. He tells us to be real careful out there, to stick together, that there was a big animal out in the woods. His son, who's my age, asks if he can stay and hang out with us. We say okay. So we end up playing football, just dicking around. There's the white kid, Tanner, 5 of my cousins, then 4 of their friends. In total, there were 5 girls and 6 boys. We were all around 15 to 17. So we just end up dicking the day away. So we head to camp and pull out some of the stuff for a campfire. Even though both trailers had kitchenettes. Tanner says that his family property sits up against my uncle's. And he wants to run home to ask his dad if he can come out camping with us. My cousin Rooster said he's going to go with him because it's going to get dark soon. And one of the girls wants to tag along. It's about 7 o'clock and it starts getting pretty dark. They take flashlights and take the trail towards Tan's property. The rest of us chill, make s'mores, drink, and kiss with the girls. About 30 or 40 minutes later, there's that smell of ozone again. You can smell it over the smell of the fire. It was really nasty, coppery smell. Like right after you have a nosebleed and it's stopped. It wasn't exactly like dried blood, but it was that nasty metallic back of your throat kind of smell. We immediately think that it's some kind of electrical malfunction, or someone left a hot plate on or some shit. We search the trailers and nothing's on, and we can all smell it. All of a sudden we hear people booking it down the path towards us. Rooster, Tanner, and the girl all come running into the clearing, out of breath. They don't even break stride, they just run right into a trailer, right by where the fire is. We all get the fuck out of there and into the trailers. They end up calming down. Even Rooster is crying his fucking eyes out at this point. All the while, the fire is guttering lower and lower. So my cousin says fuck it, he's going to get the generator in the shed between the 2 trailers. Tanner goes, fuck no. Lock that door. Ain't no one else going outside. He's been crying too. His eyes are bloodshot and puffy, and his pants are dirty as shit. He goes on to tell us that they went up to his house. His father said sure, he could go out camping, but to make sure that they were careful on the way back, and that maybe they should take one of the hunting rifles just in case. Evidently, Tanner had seen something in the yard a couple of days before. One of their pigs had come up, ripped up and half-eaten. They assumed it was some big cat or coyote, even though they don't usually fuck with live animals. He had gone upstairs and packed his stuff and told his dad that they would be okay without the rifles because coyotes usually avoid people. So they started walking back to where we were camping. So Rooster finally stopped crying and shaking. The girl already had, but she was staring out the window with some dumb look on her face. He says they had gotten halfway into the wood towards the camp when they started to hear this weird shit in the forest. It was almost pitch black by this time, so they weren't sure what the fuck it was at first. The girl said she heard something in the bushes right off the trail, and they all beamed their flashlights over there, and there was someone standing in the back of the woods, in this little hollow. Rooster said they shouted at him and told him that he was scaring the fuck out of them and what a dick he was. He says that when they realized it was a guy facing away from them, they kept walking. they start smelling the nasty coppery ozone smell. They said that's when they look off into the forest, but on the opposite side. And it's a dude standing in the forest, backwards, slightly closer to the path. Now they start power walking, and Tan keeps going, "I should have taken the fucking rifle." As they're telling the story, the smell gets super strong inside the cabin. They say that they started walking faster. A kind of low gibberish sound had started coming from both sides of the woods, and they started booking it back to the trailer. The girl said that she shined her flashlight out into the woods to the side of them, and that she'd seen something jerking itself through the woods. The gibberish got louder and louder, and when they could see the light from the campfire, something came out of the woods about 40 yards behind them on the trail, and they just flat out ran as hard as they could back to us. So we're out in the fucking woods, and we're assuming that at this point, it's some rednecks or some shit trying to fuck with us. All of a sudden, my other cousin, Junior, starts going on about how he went to school with this native kid, and telling him about the Goatman or some shit. We promptly tell him to shut the fuck up, because we don't need any of that spooky talk right now. But he just keeps going on and how it's the fucking Goatman, and how we're in the woods, blah blah blah. Now at the time, I never heard of the Goatman or anything like that. But then a couple years ago, a year before I graduated from college, I had a Menom for a roommate, and I ended up asking him about it. And to sum it up, he's basically a fucking man with the head of a goat that can shapeshift and gets among a group of people and terrorizes them. It's also supposed to be kind of like the Wendigo, but it's a bad mojo to even talk about it. And it's even worse if you see it. Keep in mind, I didn't know this back when I was 16. So my cousin keeps going, "The Goatman's gonna get in and fucking get us." The girls are terrified, and my cousins and I are all trying to figure out if it's just some sort of hillbilly or if it's an animal. So all of a sudden the smell just goes away. Like, to this day, I haven't even experienced anything like it. Like, usually smells fade away or kind of lessen over time. It just was literally there 1 second and then gone the next. So after an hour, making it around 9 or 10, we've stopped shitting bricks enough to go back outside and stoke the fire again. We figure it was just some asshole trying to fuck with us, so we don't go back home. Because if we do, we think they'll chase us through the woods or some crazy shit. Nothing else happens that night. We decide to stay another night. And for the most part of the night, nothing happens. At about 1 a.m., we go outside, we're getting drunk and telling ghost stories. Someone's finishing a too spooky story. I don't remember what it was. The smell comes back. It's so fucking strong that one of the girls literally starts vomiting. I stand up and you can actually feel how clammy the air is. I say we should get inside and that something isn't right. We should have just fucking left. We all go back inside and we're standing around. My cousin keeps going on and on about how it's the Goatman, and my cousin Rooster tries to shut him the fuck up. All the while I'm just feeling that something's wrong, but I can't figure out what the fuck it is. So we end up sitting there for a while. The smell is just as strong and we're all terrified and huddled in the camper. We end up cooking brats because no one wants to go outside. It's one of those packs with 4 brats in it, and we have 3 total packs. So I grill them up on the stove and give everyone a brat. I get mine. After a while, one of my cousins gets up and goes over to the pot for another one. He starts grumbling something about how I got 2 brats and he only got 1. I look at him like he's fucking stupid. I tell him that everybody only got 1 because there were only 12 brats. If he wants more, he should open up a new pack and cook them himself. That's when the girl who had been out with Rooster and Tan starts screaming, "Oh Jesus, oh Lord, get it out!" She's crying and shivering. And then it dawns on the cousin standing up, what the fuck is wrong? Me and him both glance around the room when my heart fucking sank. I run the fuck out of the cabin and the girl runs out with us, the trailer door banging on the side as everyone books it out of the cabin. One of my cousin asks us what the fuck is wrong. I start counting us. There's only 11 now. I shit you not, my cousin verified. There had been 12 people in the cabin. But being that everyone didn't really know each other that well, nobody noticed the whole fucking time that there was an extra person in the cabin. And then when I realized earlier that something was kind of off. You know how you're just kind of dicking around having a good time and you don't sweat the small stuff? And you don't always keep track of certain other stuff? I'm dead sure that someone else had been in that trailer with us. And that they had been there for at least a fucking day. Eating with us, drinking with us. And what makes it worse is, I could figure out which one because I don't think I ever really interacted with the other person. Or the Goatman. The girl kept praying to Jesus while we're all sitting outside. Eventually we get big ass sticks and go back into the cabin, but there's nobody there. We count again and there's 11 people. We go back into the trailer and lock the door. We explain what the fuck happened. The girl says that she realized it too, and that when she was about to say something, the person sitting next to her grabbed her leg, hard, and leaned over to her and said something that she didn't understand. So we're pretty much scared as fuck and we're all huddled together. I fall asleep. When I wake up, the sun is just coming up, and half the people are asleep and the other half are packing our shit up. We all want to walk home, but like 4 people want to stay until the sun is all the way up. And some people think that we're just fucking around and still want to stay at the trailers. I just want to get the fuck out of the woods. The girl's name was Kira, the one that the Goatman had touched. Anyway, I asked her if she really thinks it was something bad. She said she just wants to go home and doesn't want to be in the woods another night. So we decide to split up. The 4 that want to go, they can go. But I have to stay because I have the keys to the cabin and it's my uncle's and I have to lock up. I'm super pissed off at this point because I feel like people aren't taking this shit seriously and I definitely don't want to be in the woods another night. So I spend the rest of the day trying to convince the rest of the people. Now 4 girls and 4 guys to get the fuck out of Dodge. Tanner leaves with them to get the rifle and says he's going to come back. So there are just 7 of us left by 4 p.m. Around 5 p.m., he hasn't made it back yet. We were all getting really fucking angsty. The only reason I stopped begging them to go back was because he went to get a gun. Now it's about 5:30 or so, when one of my cousins says he can see Kira outside. We all look outside and sure enough, she was standing by the fire pit with her back to the cabin. Now I'm thinking to myself, if she was so fucking scared, why the hell would she come back? And then I get this real nasty feeling in my gut. Keep in mind, the coppery smell has been gone this whole time. Now I realize I can smell just a twinge of it. I say this to the rest of them. And these are the people that wanted to stay in the fucking woods, even after we had the goddamn Goatman in our midst. Is laughing, asking me if I set this up to scare them. I'm looking at them like, no, I'm not fucking bullshitting you all right now. I asked them why the fuck I would play that. So one of the girls goes outside to get Kira. She gets halfway through and stops cold in her steps. Kira starts heaving. I don't know how the fuck to describe it. Sort of like when someone has their back turned was laughing without actually making any sound. It was this fact that made me realize that there was not a fucking sound in the whole woods. It was dead silent. This was like in late September, so it was still fairly hot out at the time, but it was still super chilly on some days too. You could usually hear the big-ass geese honking or some kind of bird call, and squirrels chit-chatting. So I step out the door and tell her to come back in the fucking trailer right goddamn now. She backs up to the trailer and we lock the fucking door. We pull down all the shades except one. Put a guy in a chair there to watch her. She stands there for about 20 minutes or so. The guy turns to say that she's still there, and then we hear this huge fucking bang on the door. We all jump and scramble out of the living room of the trailer. The banging is super fucking loud. So now my cousin is holding one of the girls, the other 2 are kind of giggling and laughing with nervousness, and me and my other cousin are shitting bricks. Then we hear Tan. He's screaming, "Let me the fuck in! Stop playing!" So we go over to the door and open it, and he stumbles in with the rifle. no one else is outside. Evidently, he had walked up to the campsite. Nothing weird happened in the forest. But he had seen a girl. Mind you, he said it was not Kira standing there. When he had gotten to the edge of the clearing, she had turned towards him with a slack-jawed look and just stared him down, slowly tracking him as he walked around the outside of the clearing towards the camp. He said it wasn't until he was halfway to the trailer that he realized that she was getting closer to him. She had started off by the fire, and without him even seeing her move, she had been inching closer. He said he just ran the rest of the way back to the cabin thinking it would be open, and when he got to the door, it was locked. He turned and it was about half the distance now. He looks around the room and then gets super pale. He pulls me to one side and whispers in my ear, "You know, there were only 7 of us here, right?" I get that feeling like when your stomach drops down to your nuts. It had been back inside the trailer while we were just kind of sorting out what was going on. And then we all went back outside to talk to each other earlier in the day. It just slipped right back in. We looked out the window and nobody was out there. So we recount everyone. Then basically I go over and ask how many people were in the trailer earlier. And everyone says 8. I say, well, how many are there now? They all do the count and realize that there are now 7 people in the cabin. So Tan had brought back a couple of boxes of ammo with his rifle. And he told his dad that there was some kind of animal in the forest, because he didn't think his dad would believe him if he said it was the Goatman. He said that his cousin is supposed to be coming down in a few hours, and that in the morning we can all go back to his place, and his cousin will drive us home. Well, now I'm really fucking terrified, but at least I feel a little better how we can be American and shoot the fuck out of whatever it is if it comes back. But then my cousin gets into this huge argument with one of the girls because she thinks that I'm trying to be funny and pull a prank on him, and that she's getting really scared and how I'm not funny. He keeps telling her that I'm not that kind of person, and she says, "Well, how do I know the girl wasn't just Tanner in a wig? Or if it really was the Goatman, how do we know this is the real Tanner and the Goatman didn't kill Tanner in the woods and take his gun?" So we get into this huge fucking argument about this, and me and Tanner are like, look, we could be in serious danger. At the very least, someone has been sneaking themselves into our fucking trailer without us knowing and mingling with us. At worst, something really bad is out in the forest fucking with us. One of the girls is crying and saying she wants to go right now. We're all trying to tell her that she shouldn't because no one should be walking through the woods in the middle of the night. At this point, the sun is starting to go down and it's really cloudy out. We eat something and turn on the radio for a while, but we really can't get a station out there with anything decent. So we turn it off, and about that time Tan's cousin shows up. He was like 19. I think at this point the sun is just barely over the horizon, and he has one of those heavy-duty lantern flashlights and another rifle. He walks up to the trailer and we whisper to Tan asking if he's sure that's his cousin. He says yes. The guy looks behind him and all around the camp. Then he walks in. He kind of glances at all of us and looks a little confused. He says, "Where's your buddy at? I figured she would meet me up at the cabin. Is she a little slow or something?" He asked whether we had been cooking blood in the cabin, because it smelled like blood in hot pans all the way up the trail. We were all fucking like, nope. Then we asked him what the fuck he's talking about with the girl he saw. He said he had come down the trail that Tan had been using, and he had come up on one of Yu's guys' buddies, standing in the middle of the trail, looking at him, kind of slack-jawed. He asked her a bunch of questions, but all she did was look at him. Then she smiled, and he said she kept on walking. She couldn't seem to keep up with him and kept lagging a little behind him. He said that he asked her if she was hurt or something and if she needed any help, but she just stared at him. Eventually, he had been walking and turned around at the bend in the trail, but when he turned to ask if she was doing okay, the trail was empty. He just assumed that she had taken some kind of shortcut through the woods to the trailer. We tell him the whole story of what's been going on, half expecting him to say that we were full of shit, but he just listened and sat down on one of the couches in the living room. Tanner's cousin gets back up to the girl. He says that she had kept trying to lag behind him. It kind of weirded him the fuck out. So he tried to keep her in front of him, But no matter how slow that he walked, she would always lag behind a little bit, and that he smelled this really nasty stench. It got stronger as he got to the cabin. Eventually, it got really strong. She had said something really low that he didn't catch, and when he turned around to ask what it was, she was right the fuck up on him, and he stepped back from her. It was at this point he asked if she was okay. If she wasn't, that he would carry her the rest of the way. But she just kept staring at him. He said he reached out for her to grab her on the shoulder, but he must have misjudged the distance because she was off to the side where he had put his hand. Like, she moved while he was looking dead at her. So, at this point, we know this shit's real, unless it's Tan playing the joke, which we can tell it's not because he's about to piss his pants. So, they load up the rifles, we eat some more, and we just kinda sit around until 11 o'clock. To this fucking day, every time I think about this, I really and truly pray to God that it was a prank that the cousins played on me. Just never revealed it so that I would shit myself for the rest of my life. At around 11 o'clock, the stink of copper turns into this nasty, gross blood-like smell, like cooking blood and singed hair. Tan and his cousin, Reese, get the fuck up instantly and grab their rifles. There's like a half knocking, half clawing at the door, and I shit you not, there's a voice. It sounds like when you see one of those YouTube cat and dog owners teach their dogs how to talk. It says in this halting, weird tone, "Let me the fuck in. Stop fucking playing." I swear to God, it made my fucking nuts creep up inside my body. And one of the girls starts crying and calling on Jesus. It was so fucking obviously not a person talking. It didn't even have a cadence. So that's some weird shit I never realized until that moment. But everybody has a certain cadence when they talk, no matter the language. All people have a certain kind of rhythm of talking. This shit didn't have any cadence or rhythm. Like one of those YouTube cats. That's what the fuck it sounded like outside the door. So now I'm in full terror mode. We keep yelling outside, "Who is it? Stop fucking around, man." And it just keeps saying, "In," or "Let me the fuck in," for like 15 minutes. It kinda sounded like the O. Long Johnson cat. But if you can't imagine how this shit sounded, then you can't imagine how fucked up the whole situation is. So then the smell just goes away after a while. And for the next hour or so, you can hear someone basically creeping around in the woods. Every couple of minutes, I go back in the woods to check and look at the door and say something. Finally, the smell fades away. It's about 2 o'clock in the morning now, and Reese says, "Man, fuck this," and opens the door and walks outside with his rifle. He fires a shot into the air, and it has something to the effect of, "In the name of Jesus Christ, go away." He fires 2 more times. Then from the woods, right against the river across the trailer, it sounds like something is slowly gibbering and hooting. Then it starts screaming. It almost sounds like a woman and a cat in a bag screaming together. Like, I've seriously never heard any shit like that. You can hear all the brushes over that way start to shake. Reese fires over into the tree line, then starts back into the house. We lock the door and we can hear the shit kneeing and screaming. Reese says something had to come out of the bushes, super low on the ground, crawling towards the cabin. He shot at it. That's pretty much how the rest of the night went. It was literally screaming constantly for the next 2 hours, and we could hear shit moving off in the tree line. But it never came back up to the cabin until everyone had finally fallen asleep. Tan had been sitting in the chair watching the door with his rifle. No one else saw or heard this, but he told me 2 days later, after the whole thing was over. He said that he had been nodding off after the screaming noises finally stopped, and that he had almost been asleep when he saw someone come out of the bathroom and lay on the middle of the floor to go to sleep. He just assumed it was one of us and nodded off. Then he said he kinda realized that something was wrong. While pretending to be asleep, he counted us. There were 9 people in the cabin. He basically didn't want to shoot at the thing in the fucking cabin and have it kill us all then and there. Or have Reese wake up and start shooting and then we all kill ourselves. So he just stayed awake all night, pretending to be asleep. He said sometimes it would stand up and do kind of weird jittery stuff. Or heave like it was laughing, and then it would just lay back down. The story closes pretty weak, because from my perspective, nothing happened. We woke up and I noticed that Tanner was a little bit jittery, and that he was avoiding looking at all of us. But we ate some breakfast and packed up and started walking to his house. He was the last one in the cabin and said he would bring me my uncle's keys. I just started walking and thought he'd catch up, which I really didn't fucking want to do. We got a little bit up the path and he came running. We basically jogged the rest of the way to get back to his house, and his cousin took us home. There was a window in the bathroom. Tan had gone back to lock up and looked in there. We were all too stupid to lock the screenless window. The window was fucking up when we went in there. So I'm guessing that that's what it was doing all along. Waiting for us to fall asleep and then getting in among us. It walked among us all the goddamn way back to his house. Then he said it just kinda lagged in the back of the group, looked him dead in the eyes, and then walked off into the woods. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all my very, very lovely patrons, all listed on screen right now. Dan R., Cody V., Chaos X, Paul Z., Mr. Swiston, Official Jerboa, JY Pyromancer, Hayden MH, Ethan A., and Dark Side of the Bear. Guys, thank you all so much. I really appreciate it. I just changed all the Patreon tiers, so if that's something you might be interested in, head over to Patreon and take a look and let me know what you think. You can get perks like having your name read off, Patreon-only content. I think I'm going to try to aim for 2 or 3 this month, and a bunch of other stuff. There's a tier to have a bit part if I need a role. Make sure if that's something you're interested in, you join the Discord, which is also on Patreon. Thank you.